It's 1 o'clock, so it's time for our meeting to start. And welcome to the October 23rd, 2019 Santa Clara, Santa Cruz Airport Community Roundtable meeting here in Santa Clara, California. I'm Steve Alverson with Environmental Science Associates, also known as ESA. I have the honor and privilege of serving as the facilitator of this roundtable. Out of respect for everyone's time, one of my roles is to keep the roundtable discussions on topic and within the time that's allotted on the meeting agenda. Therefore, I may interrupt conversations or end a discussion to keep us all on track. Also will insist that the member discussion and input from the public be respectful to each other and in particular to our colleagues from the Federal Aviation Administration. Everyone at this meeting is advocating for minimizing aircraft noise impacts. Therefore, we have no adversaries in this room today. The roundtable provides a collaborative forum within which aircraft noise concerns can be discussed and recommendations can be forwarded to the FAA and others for consideration. The collaboration will be most productive in a collegial and respectful environment. Abusive or demeaning behavior will not be tolerated. You'll note that there's a public comment period on the agenda for agenda items not on today's agenda. It's towards the end of our agenda, which is intended to provide the public an opportunity to share concerns with roundtable members for their future consideration. Due to the Brown Act, the roundtable is unable to take action at this meeting on items raised during that public comment period. If you wish to speak, and I will show you an example, please complete one of these speaker cards and provide it to Evan Wasserman, who's just walked out of the room on the phone. But he's sitting over there in the corner. Evan will organize those and bring them to me and the roundtable chair. Please don't bring them here to us because it throws our system off in terms of keeping track of what the items are that people want to speak on. Depending on the number of speakers that we have during that public comment period, the chair may reduce the amount of time allotted to each speaker in order to stay on schedule. For example, today if we allotted 10 minutes of public comment period, if we have 10 speakers, then each speaker will be limited to 1 minute. I thank you all for adhering to the stated time limit. And with that, Madam Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Steve, and welcome. Welcome to all of you today. I would like if each of the roundtable members would identify themselves and the city they're from. I have been notified that Anita Enander is at another meeting and will be joining us later today. And as we move around, I'll also talk about who else is on the phone. Lydia, would you start, please, today?
Sure, thank you. Lydia Koo with the City of Palo Alto.
Glenn Hendricks, council member from Sunnyvale.
Michelle Wu, Los Altos Hill.
Kathy Watanabe, City of Santa Clara.
Steve Alverson with ESA, facilitator.
Mary Lynn Bernal, Chair, and with the City of Saratoga.
Lisa Matichak, Mayor of City of Mountain View and Vice Chair of this roundtable.
Carlos Palacios, I'm the County Administrative Officer for Santa Cruz County.
And who is missing on the end, Ed? Liz. Oh, that's Liz. Okay. I think I got something from her saying that she would be late, too. And phoning in today, I believe I have Steve Preminger. Is that
I am here.
Hi, Steve.
Here, but I'm there.
Welcome. And I have Karen Chapman and Kathleen Lee. Hello?
Yes, this is Kathleen from Congressman Panetta's office. Thank you for allowing me to participate by phone.
Thank you. And Karen? Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Karen Chapman with Congresswoman Eshu's office.
Thank you very much. As a result of the phone-ins today, every vote that we take, we will have to do by individual vote and tally it that way. I also want to recognize Tom Pike.
Hello, good to be here. I'm Tom Pike, District Director for Congressman Ro Khanna.
Thank you very much. And representing the FAA?
Yes, good afternoon. For the record, Fabiola Garcia, Senior Advisor.
Yes, Skylar Ron, Community Engagement with the FAA.
Thank you very much for joining us today. First on the agenda, we have number 3, a briefing on the 2020 UC Davis Aviation Noise and Emissions Symposium. Sandra Hall, are you here?
I think that might be Sandra coming through the door right now.
Wonderful.
Perfect timing. So
problem.
if we could get Sandra's presentation up on the screen, and then
And
if you could take that mic there.
while we are doing all this, I did want to tell the public that normally we do not use cell phones in the course of a meeting, but our member Lisa Matichek does have a family emergency today, and so she may be responding. Otherwise, I would ask everyone to please silence your cell phones so that our thought processes are not interrupted. Thank you very much. I don't know.
My phone. Oh. Sorry about that. I should have put it on stun.
Hello. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for having me. My name is Sandra Hall. I work at UC Davis Air Quality Research Center. I am here to tell you about the Aviation Noise and Emissions Symposium. This symposium is all about talking about the issues that face airports and communities related to emissions and noise, similarly to the name suggests. We, at our symposium that's been going on for over 30 years now, we talk about the different challenges related to flight path changes, related to community noise that results from these flight path changes. We bring in various stakeholders from the airports themselves, from the surrounding communities, and from industry members that are dealing with these changes and finding solutions to these changes, or to these, to these flight path changes that can help reduce noise and emissions. At our symposium, we explore new technology related to it. It's really a all-encompassing event that is supposed to foster a discussion between both the airports and the communities about ways to improve noise around communities and the emissions that are resulting from these flights. So this year we have a team of about, I believe it's 13 people that have put together these symposium program topics that are going to be discussed at the symposium. A lot of them we talk about year after year, such as different non-acoustic factors, different airspace entrants that are new to aviation. We talk about ways that airlines and airports can interact with the local community to be able to inform the community of various changes, ask for their feedback about various changes, and make sure that it's a give and take relationship to make sure that the airspace is understood on why these flight path changes are happening and how to best deal with them or create alternate changes that will help the community. So you can see these are the program topics. As I mentioned, some of the new ones, we're looking more at climate change in aviation. We're putting a larger emphasis this year on emission reduction efforts to go along with that climate change and aviation issue. I mentioned a planning committee. This is our planning committee, so you can see that we get input from everybody, from the industry members to consultants to community members and the local county and city groups that are very concerned about these issues. So we do have. You have one of our committee members on your board there, Steve. So it's been fantastic having him on the board, and thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to come speak with you. To give you a little bit of an overview of how the symposium works, we have 3 days. The first day is a training to allow for people that are new to aviation noise and emissions issues to actually learn about the issues themselves. They come in and they learn the technical side so that they can have all the jargon and be able to understand what is going to happen in the next 2 days. The following 2 days, we have our different session topics that happen, and we make sure there's an emphasis on question and answers so that people can make sure they're understanding all the topics and express concerns or ideas that they might have. So that happens over the next 2 days, and then we also ensure that there is a lot of sort of outside activities to allow for community members, industry members, and the airlines and airports themselves to interact outside of just discussing these noise and emissions issues so that there can be a better bond between everybody. So the details are that it's this March 1st through 3rd in 2020. So we're coming up on it, and we've got our planning committee is working hard on establishing all our speakers. As you can see, there is a website there, and we have registration opening up in early December. So I hope that you guys will share this information and encourage people to come to our symposium to learn about these issues and be able to better advocate for your needs as a city and as a community. And that is all. Thank you very much. Are there questions?
I was just going to ask if there were any questions. I have one, but I'll defer to anyone else on the committee. There's a $280 deal if you're an early bird.
Yes.
What is the deadline that you missed, the early bird?
The early bird, I believe, ends at the end of December.
And then it goes to the price?
It goes to $380, so it goes up by $100.
So there's incentive there.
There is an incentive, and that helps us make sure that we have all our planning in place and get everything situated a lot quicker.
Very good. Any further questions?
Madam Chair, may I make a statement? I have been involved in this for a very long time. I think from the inception, which gives you an idea how old I am. But I did want to mention that Jennifer Landesman is also on the program committee as well. So we're getting input from the community. And it's one of the things that makes this symposium unique is that it's very broad based, very broad focused, a lot of interaction. And it is a true symposium format. So the presentations tend to be relatively brief. And then there's a lot of exchange, interaction between the audience members and the panel members. It's certainly, for our type of group, one of the best types of these symposiums each year to attend.
Thank you.
Oh, the only question, what time does it end on Tuesday?
On Tuesday, we aim to have it end before 5 o'clock. So it is in Southern California, San Diego, so there are flights that can get you back up here in time for the evening.
Right. There's council meetings, that's why. All right, thank you.
And for the record, I should note that Steve Scharf has joined us, and that was where the question came from.
Sorry I'm late.
Understandable. Thank you. Anything else? Then thank you very much. Oh, yes.
One question. I see over here you have explore new technology and aircrafts in aviation. I'm kind of gathering that perhaps supersonic flights that are now being tested as part of your exploration as well.
Yes, we actually had a keynote on that 2 years ago, sorry.
Oh, it started.
2 years ago. So that is something that we discussed, but I don't know that we're going to have a speaker this year on supersonic specifically. As you know, supersonic creates a boom, and that is a noise issue, and so something we have talked about, but I don't know that there's going to be somebody specific this year.
How about air taxis? Is that something that you're looking into too?
That is one that was on our list for this year that's a new one also that we want to look into, but we're hoping to have a better idea of the schedule by the end of November, and then from there we'll know which speakers are actually going to be there.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Thank you for coming today. Really appreciate it. All right. Thank you. It's time for public comment. Is there anyone that wanted to comment on that? Jennifer?
Hi. Yeah, so I've been attending this conference for a while, and it is where all the stakeholders meet. So last year, for example, United, Boeing, FAA specialists, technical people, Airlines for America. And so we often don't have that opportunity to do that in a lot of our forums here where we're just working, on the specific issues. But I think it's a really great forum to interact with the industry because some of the decisions that we end up sending to FAA from here end up being reviewed by committee members and people who are actually in charge of noise or other issues, safety, technical. So this is a really great forum. There are many industry symposiums I've learned, and this is the only one that actually has community members. And it also has elected officials attending from time to time. So it's a difficult subject, but we've got to find a place where we can interact, and this is a good one. And I wasn't sure if the speaker topic number 3 related to this item or to the SUNNE 1 SID.
This is number 3.
Okay, so it's anything before that. So I'll speak to the other one another time. Thank you.
We have your card here. Thank you. And yes, Robert, I want to agree that the education factor and opportunity is a tremendous asset with this symposium. Robert, yes. I don't have a card for you. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
I wasn't going to speak, but I'll be economical with my comment. I attended this 2 years ago. I got a lot of value out of it. The only thing that I would add to what has been said so far is this was a springboard for me to get national connections with people that are interested in this topic in other cities, and to be introduced to like Dr. Hansman, who runs the MIT program that's been doing research into this. So I got a lot of value out of this, and I plan to attend next year.
And just for the record, you were Robert Holbrook. Since we have people phoning in, I have to be very conscious of that today. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on this item? Then we will close this section and move on to item number 4, which is the briefing on the FAA's work on the Sunny 1 SID, aka Oakland 120, departure down the bay. And Steve Alverson will be giving the presentation. We had a request on Oakland 050, and I believe that this is what this has now become. So I don't want there to be any confusion. And while Steve is preparing, I see Anita Enander has joined us. Thank you. And Liz Lawler has joined us. Thank you.
Testing, 1, 2. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Roundtable and public. As Chair mentioned, this came to our attention as a particular concern of some of the members of the Roundtable, which I'll get into in a little bit why that is, why there might be a concern about that. But I'll start by mentioning that at the technical working group, the San Francisco Roundtable, the FAA gave a presentation on this particular issue on September 26th. That meeting was recorded from an audio standpoint, but there's no video along with it. There was a presentation that was provided for it. The FAA said they would provide that to the San Francisco for posting it. That has not been provided to the airport yet. But in conversations with the FAA in preparing for this presentation, I was allowed to use a few slides of that presentation, so I'll be covering those today. This relates to the FAA's initiatives process, where they provide us updates on the select committee reports, and there were questions that the technical working group had about that. Roundtable members have in front of them that list of questions from the Roundtable. It is on the SFO website, so if members of the public want to go download that, they certainly can do that. And the focus was, for this presentation, on what's known as the Sunny 1 SID. It has been referred to in various different ways as the Oak 050, the Oak 120, but ultimately, in reviewing the materials, this group's interest, I think, is primarily the Sunny 1 SID, and then somewhat related to that, the SFO. 050 departure. So what is this Sunny One SID? It is a conventional departure procedure, a standard instrument departure, or SID as it's referred to. And what do I mean by conventional? It means that it is not a area navigation procedure or RNAV procedure, and it's not a performance-based navigation procedure. It means that there's not precise guidance associated with this particular SID, which is the way that planes have flown for years and years and years. All of our SIDs and arrival procedures have been conventional procedures up until the advent of these newer technologies. What that means for the community is that the flight tracks are quite dispersed, and they disperse based on the wind that's aloft as the aircraft goes up and makes its turn, variations in the way that the aircraft is being flown by the pilot, variations on when the controller is giving direction to the pilots. So you wind up seeing a very large dispersion in those flight tracks, which these days tends to be a beneficial item as opposed to concentrating flight tracks over a single area, particularly if there's population there. So that's what the Sunny One SID is. It has being developed at the request of the Northern California TRACON, which we also call the NCT, in conjunction with the Oakland Noise Office has requested this. The FAA indicates that from their perspective, it will increase safety by reducing controller workload. Well, what is that workload? And the workload is having to handle that aircraft as the controllers give it various vectors and turns as it departs from Oakland International Airport. By putting this conventional SID in place, the controllers can tell the aircraft, you're cleared to fly the Sunny One SID, and the controller at that point knows exactly the path that the plane should be taking as it departs out over the San Francisco Bay and heads down to the south. The controller does not need to talk to that aircraft again until there's a change in that aircraft's destination or altitude or that type of thing. So it really minimizes the workload for the controller and the interactions with the pilot. Because it streamlines that communication and the interaction with the pilot, it makes it a much easier procedure to use and for the aircraft to fly. The SID is scheduled to be published right now towards the end of January 2020. If you look at the IFB Gateway website, it indicates that it's in flight testing right now. This SID is not required to go through the standard performance-based navigation checklist that we've all kind of gotten used to because it's a conventional procedure. The FAA does have to follow all the normal environmental rules related to that. So it is not the type of thing that we typically show up on the gateway, but they put it on there so that our groups and other groups could be aware that this was in process. Publishing this SID provides no additional incentive to the aircraft operators to increase the use of this particular procedure, as it's a conventional departure procedure, and it's secondary to the Hush-2 RNAV SID, nighttime SID departing out of Oakland. So it would be less used than the current Hush-2 SID is being used. So what does this look like here? And hopefully I'll be able to use this fantastic pointer. I love this. So get this to move over in this direction here a little bit. So on the right-hand side of the screen, I am showing the layout of Oakland International Airport. 1230, that runway is the main air carrier runway, with most departures departing up to the north off of this runway here. And transitioning over to the slide that's next to it, this depiction here is the runway system. So aircraft depart on runway heading, which is 296 degrees, and at about 520 feet, they make a turn towards this night view waypoint. They intercept that. They then, the Hush waypoint. They then head up to the night waypoint. And if they're heading northbound, they'll continue up north through the bay. If they're heading southbound or out towards the west, they'll make that left-hand turn, hit this Gobs point, which flies right over the center of the Golden Gate Bridge, and then head to their destinations beyond that point. Wanted to show this because this is the primary nighttime departure, noise abatement departure procedure out of San Jose. It is the preferred procedure. The Sunny One is essentially a secondary procedure to that procedure. So, Oakland, sorry, Oakland, thank you. In its August 22nd memo, which is in front of the roundtable members, to the FAA, raising questions about a variety of different things, the Sunny One SID was included in that. And the roundtable wanted to make it clear that first, and there are quotes around this, that the roundtable has previously recommended the increased use of longstanding TRACON or NCT standard operating procedure, nighttime noise abatement, vectoring for procedures for southbound departures using the SFO 050 degree down the bay, as it's known, and the Oak 135 with an approximate sign there, also down the bay. And then they noted that the roundtable has not requested a published procedure for either the San Francisco 050 down the bay or this Oak 135. For our purposes, it's the Oak 120. That's what we'll refer to it as. So moving forward, when I refer to Oak 120 in relation to, that's what the 135 is referring to here. At that meeting, the FAA indicated to the technical working group that they are not pursuing a procedure related to formalizing the SFO 050 departure procedure. Because they have no operational need to do that at this point in time. So for those of you who might be concerned about the 050 procedure, out of SFO, it's going to stay the way that it is. There'll be no development of a procedure related to it at this time. And I think that was part of the original concern that our roundtable members had. The 4 following slides that I'm going to walk you through were presented at that September 26th meeting, and I provide some caveats here. First is they are exact copies of the slides that the FAA gave, with the exception of I did some formatting on them. We use a much wider screen than they use, and so I put 2 little blue sides on it so it looks nice. Slide 7, I put an annotation on there describing the period of time that the flight tracks you're going to see represents. That wasn't on that slide originally. It is in that presentation, so I just moved that text. I also indicate that the page numbers that correspond to this slideshow, so I'm currently on slide number 6 here, have been replicated on the bottom of the FAA slides. So if the FAA document is released, and I say slide 7 here, it's because I put it on there. It's not slide 7 in their presentation. And finally, the slides are being used by me for the roundtable's benefit with the FAA's permission. I didn't just steal them. So what we have here on this screen is a depiction of the Oak 0120 departure procedure. It's currently being flown. So up here where my pointer is that air carrier runway. Aircraft depart out on runway heading. They hit that hush waypoint, then turn down over the bay, proceed down the bay for a while, and depending on where they're going and what direction they get, ultimately they all turn to a heading of 120 degrees and head out of the San Francisco Bay area. And you can see that there's a fair amount of dispersion in that flight track. We don't have that laser-focused track that we get from the RNAV or PBN procedure. There's a several mile spread as those aircraft are climbing out, the winds are affecting them, and they're getting turns at different points in time. So I just want to make sure so you have a sense of what that looks like as it's currently being flown. And the FAA says this is what it will look like once the Sunny One SID goes into place, because it's a conventional procedure. No additional guidance for navigation is being put in there. On this next slide, a little bit different presentation here. It's one that you've sort of seen before in relation to the Loop 5 that we saw before in relation to San Jose. The yellow boundary here shows sort of the outer boundary of where this procedure is and where these flight tracks might be, a little kind of keyhole shape. And then right down the center, this green line is sort of the nominal place where the procedure is laid out for the Sunny One. So if an aircraft were to depart on runway heading, turn to Hush 1, and then follow this procedure without any additional guidance, it would go all the way down through the center of the bay and head out the bottom of this trapezoid where it's indicated there. That is not the way that it happens based on that earlier slide that you saw. Aircraft want to make turns to their East Coast destinations. They get those turns somewhere along the bay, and they head out basically before they reach Santa Clara County. And I have a slide later on that will show the altitudes of those aircraft and where they're making those turns. So on this slide, what the FAA did was layered over both the 120 procedure out of Oakland and also the SFO 050. So the light blue lines are the 120 out of Oak, and then the purple or magenta lines are the 050 out of San Francisco. Some of those purple lines head across the bay and head up to the north. Some follow those same path that the 120s do out of Oakland, and some of those SFO flights come down south out and fly over this area, over Santa Clara County, and head on their way. But the reason that this slide was produced was the San Francisco Roundtable asked the FAA to show what the combined flight tracks look like in this particular format, and the FAA did that, so I can share that with you, even though the SFO 050 is not a part of this procedure. It has nothing to do with this, the Sunny One, and there's no development going on for that right now. So here's the slide I mentioned I would get to later. Over here on the left-hand side of the screen is the SFO 050 procedure. Aircraft depart out from the runway 1 left and 1 right out of San Francisco, make a turn down over the bay, and then are given various vectors heading out to the northeast, heading down to the southeast, and then down to the south over this area here. On the right-hand side is the Oak 120 procedure, where the aircraft make that turn I showed you earlier, head out over the bay, gain altitude, and then head on their 120-degree heading. It generally looks, based on this data set, which was from July of 2019, they're north of Milpitas and south of Hayward, to give you a sense of the spread of what those flight tracks look like. The other aspect of this that's kind of helpful, and the roundtable has asked, our roundtable has asked for this before, is it's a recognizable map. You can see where the land areas are, you can see the streets, and you can also see the altitudes of the aircraft. So each of these altitudes have bands associated with them. So as the aircraft are climbing out, we can see what altitude they're at. And most notably, before the aircraft fly over the landmass here on the 120, or down here coming out over the Santa Clara County area, all the aircraft are at or above 10,000 feet as they're climbing out. So they're pretty high at that particular time. So FAA describes the use of the Sunny One procedure and potential conflicts with other nighttime departure procedures, because this, again, was, I think, a concern of some of our members, that the standard noise abatement departure procedure at night for SFO is the night procedure, and for Oak is the hush procedure. So Oak aircraft will only be assigned to the proposed Sunny One departure procedure when there are no conflicting aircraft that are departing from SFO, arriving at SFO, or arriving at Oak. Essentially, when the conditions are all clear, those aircraft can be released. As that next paragraph indicates, the TRACON, or NCT, needs to provide some, what they refer to as in-trail separation between aircrafts. They have to provide some space for these departures. And if these can't be met, for RNAV-equipped aircraft, by assigning them to the Sunny procedure, those aircraft are going to be assigned to the hush. And then non-RNAV-equipped aircraft will be held on the ground at Oak until they can be released. So they will be waiting there. In a sense, there's a penalty, if you will, because here, of course, it's up to you as well. You can sort of monitor the development of this SID as the FAA works through the process and provide feedback to the FAA as appropriate. You can monitor the post-implementation. Perhaps we can work with BIRD at SFO to get some flight tracks, or Oakland to get some flight tracks from this procedure and take a look at what it's doing. Does it replicate what the FAA said it would be doing today? And of course, you always are free to take what other action that you feel is necessary at this time regarding that particular procedure. And with that, that's my brief presentation. I'll open up to roundtable member questions.
Any questions on my left? Glenn?
Sure. I have a bunch, but I'm going to try and keep it to just a few. I'm unclear as to when someone would want to use this procedure. And you mentioned, well, some aircraft might be waiting on the ground. They would be penalized if they wanted to use this, but they weren't RNAV equipped. So it sounds like an airline can request this procedure, to be given this procedure. So I'm trying to understand when somebody would want it and under what conditions the FAA is really going to use it.
Yeah, great question, Glenn. And the first place is the aircraft that are RNAV equipped, which are the vast majority of our airlines, commercial airlines.